Now, when you have a serious injury, it could obviously have a lasting effect on your life. But new figures indicate that over 2.5 million children have been struggling with their mental health as a result of a parent being seriously hurt. Some children have even developed PTSD as a result. Now, Rebecca is from County Durham. She had a chat to us a little bit earlier in the show about her experience of a misdiagnosis, which eventually also affected her daughter. Take a listen.
So it was around 6 years ago now. I developed a blood clot that got missed really for estimated about 2 years. It led to some liver damage, some quite serious liver damage. It's led to other health issues, but it's mainly the liver and the blood clotting disorder I have. But then when I got admitted into hospital, my daughter stayed with her nana for about 2-3 months. And it was just, trying to explain what was going on, because we didn't know. When I first got admitted into hospital, they told me pretty much straight away that I had cervical cancer, which wasn't actually true. How do you explain to a 6-year-old it's such a serious issue?
Yeah, it is so difficult. How did she take it all?
Well, we didn't really tell her about the diagnosis at first, but it wasn't until weeks and weeks and weeks later that they said that it wasn't that, and that I had this blood clot, and it's led to this damage and stuff like that. Because we didn't know, it was a very situation to explain to her that that Mum was poorly, Mum was in hospital. If we drive past the hospital, she'll always say, "Mum, go the other way. Just go the other way." And I do think she gets quite teary if we mention it and stuff.
We're talking about this morning, of course, because there is a new book which has been released called Bracky Builds a New Den. If that book was available at the time to you, do you think that might have helped?
I think so. I think, trying to explain to a child, but in a child's mind way. This situation is pretty normal, not obviously my situation, but having doctors and people in and out your house and having to move because you might have to need an adapted house to suit the person. Just to explain to a child more in a childly way, if that makes sense.
Where should we find out a little bit more about this now? I mentioned that book, didn't I? Bracky Builds a New Den. It's been written in collaboration with County Durham child psychologist Charlotte Beaumont, who joins us this morning. Morning, Charlotte.
Morning.
Morning. Thank you for coming on this morning. Now, I said it'd been written by you. It hasn't. You've helped with the book, haven't you? Just talk us through the book then and what kind of things it goes into.
It's looking at the journey of Bracky and how Bracky's life starts, essentially, and then what happens when a big change such as parental illness or injury occurs, and how Bracky then deals with that as well emotionally.
What kind of injuries, when parents have them, what kind of effect can this have on a children's mental health? Because, we heard there Rebecca's story, and it seemed to have a profound effect on her daughter.
Yeah. It can be a hard enough thing to understand as an adult, never mind as a child, but it can often end up leaving them feeling incredibly anxious and with a lot of questions about the unknowns that are happening. They often come on quite suddenly, these changes, and trying to adjust to that and get a sense of what's occurring can be really difficult for a child.
For anyone who's kind of noticing this a little bit at the minute, or maybe wants to look out for it in the future, what kind of signs, what warning signs are there that parents can look out for?
So, each child is different, and they will express in a different way. Some children express more internally, some more externally. But I think in any situation where there is parental illness or injury like that, it's really important to check out what the child's concept is of their understanding so far, because they will naturally try and make sense of what's occurred with what's available to them explanation-wise. And it might be that they've put some things together that maybe actually could do with having a conversation about and helping them to understand more fully what has occurred. And this book is potentially a great tool to be able to start that conversation and make that narrative as well as to what has happened.
And as we mentioned to Rebecca, she said there was nothing like this particular book around when she was going through all of this. How important is it to grow on this then and make sure that these kind of, helpful books and helpful different documents are available to as many people as possible?
Extra resources are always a good thing. And I think it is very important to look at resources like this in the future going forwards for many other different situations as well. And storytelling can be a very healing way to develop a narrative, not just for the individual reader, but also for a family if they're wanting to sit down and read that together as well. It can be a really good tool to open up that conversation so that they can ask the questions about their own lives and what has happened there.
Of course, and very important to say if you are going through this as well, there is a lot of help out there as well if people want to access it, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of therapeutic help out there if people are wanting to go down that route as well.
Oh, do you know what? Thank you so much for coming on this morning. Really appreciate your time. That is Charlotte Beaumont. She is a child psychologist and she has, in collaboration, written this book called Bracky Builds a New Den. If you or someone you know are going through some kind of personal injury or a traumatic time, and you want help with explaining this to your children to make sure that they're protected, that they understand what's going on, and that you're keeping them informed as well, just so that they can process it, then make sure you check it out. Bracky Builds a Den, and you know what? I think it's amazing to have that book there, because as Rebecca was saying earlier on, the lady who was misdiagnosed and her daughter suffered as a result of that, quite a bit of stress. It simply wasn't there a few years back. It's fantastic that that's there. Long may that continue, and we get more and more resource, 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 and we get...